But now it's my privilege to introduce to you our next speaker, J.B. Van Hollen. And J.B. is just doing a wonderful job. But I want to say one thing. A lot of people forget this. In 2006, when he got elected, that was not a very good year for the Republicans. In fact, we lost almost everything across the whole country. Unfortunately, our candidate for governor lost. It was just a bad year. But to tell you what a good guy, a good candidate we had in J.B. Van Hollen, he was the only Republican nationally to replace a Democrat in a statewide election. And I'll tell you, that was because of the power of ideas. He said what he was going to do, and we believed him, and he's just been doing a wonderful job. And it's now my privilege to introduce to you our wonderful Attorney General, J.B. Van Hollen.
Thank you, Brad. You're right. You did run out of time. You used 3/4 of mine. You're welcome. No, but I appreciate the praise for the election victory. Obviously, the election victory had, in my opinion, almost everything to do with two things. It had a whole lot to do with Waukesha County, as about a quarter of my election vote came from right down here in this part of the state. But it also had a lot to do with the fact that who can't beat Kathleen Falk? Come on. I mean... That's going to be my campaign slogan for Scott Walker over the course of the next couple of months. I'm just going to travel everywhere and I say, Exhibit 1, she can't beat anybody. The reality is it's not going to be her running. It's going to be an awful lot of powerful special interest groups behind her. And I agree with Brad wholeheartedly. I had great support here during my two elections in Waukesha County, Washington County, Ozaukee County, literally a quarter of my vote, and that is because you folks ran up the vote. That made all the difference in the world, and that's what's going to happen again this time. I couldn't agree with Brad more. I want to, of course, thank you for the opportunity to be here briefly. And, of course, over the course of the last 5.5 years almost now, certainly the last 1.5, we've accomplished a ton of different things in the Department of Justice. And there's so many things I'd like to brag on, such as getting rid of the backlog at the crime lab and protecting our children and so many other law enforcement-related successes we've had. But it's really hard to brag on any of the things that we've been continuing to do over the last 5.5 years when Governor Walker and the Republican leadership and others in the legislature and Senate have brought us so much opportunity to succeed in this last 1.5 years. I made it very clear when I ran for office, I firmly believed, and I still do, that the underpinning of our entire civilized society is the rule of law. The ability to protect our freedoms and liberties, to be able to protect your personal safety, and to make sure that we know we have rules that we can live by and we can depend upon. And I tell you what, I was always a little hesitant when I got up and spoke in some quarters and said that I didn't believe my opponent necessarily believed in the rule of law in either of the races that I previously ran. But I can tell you right now, I don't think the Democrats as a whole in this state believe in the rule of the law, not to mention in Washington, D.C. I know there have been times where there have been laws in this state that none of us agree with that I've had to defend because that's my job, and I've proudly done it because I knew there were going to be times coming down the road where we have laws that we desperately needed that I had to have the credibility and the integrity to defend as well. I tell you what, since we have had this courageous mass of Republicans in the Capitol, nobody's job has been more difficult than the job of the people who work for me in the Department of Justice. Because those people, Democrat and Republican alike, have stepped to the plate to enforce the rule of law. One issue after another after another. We used a special procedural technique to get out of the Court of Appeals and get to the Supreme Court so the Budget Repair Bill, Act 10, could be found constitutional. We succeeded in doing that because we have people who understand the rule of law, and we got to a court of law who actually understood and appreciated the rule of law as well. Anybody in this room who ever didn't appreciate the value of electing the right people to our judiciary, I think can certainly take notice now. But we've got a full plate in front of us right now, too. We've got all sorts of things we're defending. We're defending right now redistricting in the federal court, waiting for a ruling any day. A ruling that may cause us to go to the United States Supreme Court in a matter of months and have to prepare to argue a case, hopefully successfully, and I believe successfully, as the state of Texas recently has done in their case. We are defending Act 10 in several other cases right now as well as redistricting in other cases. We're fighting the federal health care law continually. For those of you who haven't been paying attention, I'm going to be leaving a week from now to head to Washington, D.C. for our oral arguments over Obamacare. And I have every confidence in the world that we can succeed because we have the law on our side, and if we don't succeed, we have very bad things to look forward to. But we have some other very important cases that I know all of you know about. Yesterday, in 2 different courts of appeals, one in Madison, one here in Waukesha, we filed appeals to what I think are 2 very bad and disastrous opinions as far as the rule of law goes with regards to voter ID here in the state of Wisconsin. The liberals in Madison never ceased to give up on the plan of fighting everything that our great legislators and governor do in court. When they were in power, I had to sit back and swallow hard and defend the laws they passed. And you know what? We as Republicans explained to the people of this state what they had done, and what did the people of this state do? They threw them out. And so now that the people are being represented by people who are actually voting and passing laws that they like, what are they doing? They're suing every single time we pass a new law, because they think going into activist courts is the only way they have the opportunity to still control, even when the people have taken them out of control. But I can tell you, to my last breath, I will fight every one of them to the highest court that we possibly can. I mean, we've done so many great things in this state that I almost didn't think to mention that just this week we had our 100,000th concealed carry application in the Department of Justice. But we do have a very important year coming up, and I'm going to try to wrap up here quickly. We've got a lot of very, very, very important elections all in one year. I go to bed and literally, I'm not using his name in vain, I literally thank God every night one of them's not mine. But we do have some important elections. Obviously, the recall election is not just important for the governor's race, but it's important for the control of our state Senate. We've got a U.S. Senate race, which is vitally important because it could be for the control of our country. And then we've got a presidential race, which obviously is an opportunity to try to take our country back. But I'm very honored this year to be working very diligently on a couple of those campaigns. Because I can tell you that we've had some great leadership in this state over the years. We have been very progressive, and we have been very brave in the things that we've conquered. And in my opinion, we've got 2 of the greatest governors who ever served in the history of the state of Wisconsin who we have a chance to elect in the very same year. And I think that's a pretty amazing opportunity. So I want to tell you folks what you already know. We've got to get out there and work hard. We have to make sure that we take the U.S. Senate back. We have to take the presidency back. And by God, the whole world is watching. I travel around the country and meet with AGs and governors and U.S. senators and everybody else. All of the Republicans are watching to see whether a good conservative Republican like Scott Walker can take a principled position, be brave and strong, and survive. And the country, I would submit, can hinge just as much on this recall election as it can on a presidential election. It's that important. Thank you for all you do. God bless.